The well-respected king in Edo State, the Oba of Ugu Kingdom. The Oba of Ugu Kingdom. Ugu Kingdom is located in Edo South, Edo State. The king of Ugu people. Ugu Kingdom, they are on their own. The Oba of Benin is different from Oba of Ugu. Oba of Ugu does not bow for Oba of Benin. Oba of Benin too does not bow for Oba of Ugu Kingdom.
Alright? Once existed and it was there. That was the capital. For hundreds of years, for about 400 years, Ugu Kingdom had existed independent from Benin. And it is the descendants of Elegbe that was the ruler, every first son. So Elegbe had about 11 children. Elegbe had 11 children. The first of his line became the Enogie. Also became, the first is when Elegbe died, his first son became the next Obanugu. Alright. His second son was called Olodagweze. He crowned himself. He didn't leave. Elegbe never left Umo Wonswagbo. Might of Obaeng Buddha. Everybody was aware of the military might of Obaeng Buddha, that Obaeng Buddha's military might can crush the uncrushable. Instead, it was stupidity and foolishness that made the Umogun, the original Umogun, I've said that the original Umogun is not Nokwa, that made the original Umogun people to want to engage in a warfare with Obaeng Buddha's military might. So Edonawe Umogun was work, but it was foolishness that when one a bad boy, it's just like me, I go just see the world's strongest man now. As I say, as me now rubber like this, I just say this guy get chest. And you understand? I say I want to follow the guy all ground. And I know say this guy will fit beat me, but I want to follow the guy all ground. So I don't have a that it was foolishness. If they weren't foolish, they were supposed to have ordinarily submitted to the power and might of Obaeng Buddha's military.
So his grand uncles, that is the brothers to Oba Uwahwaen, rejected it and said that he was not fit for that throne. And their claim or their excuse, which of course according to our custom and tradition, they were right. Their excuse or their claim was that Elegbe was from the mother's lineage, from the mother's side. So Elegbe was connected to the throne or connected to Oba Uwahwaen through a female, that is the mother, Imadeyo. If he were maybe the son of one of their nephews, that would have been a different case. So there was this contention for the throne. Of course, the Uzamani, then they were still five. They were known as Edionisen. They had to step in, and after some consideration, just to make peace, so that nobody would say that they were biased, they had to come up with some sort of coronation test.
Thanks for clicking on this channel. Please subscribe to FO's blog history, and click on the notification button so that whenever we upload a new video you will be notified. Benin broke into two kingdoms. The emergence of the Ugu kingdom within the Benin kingdom. One parochial and a miscreant who called himself Eldierle, dabbled into Benin history, which he has no clue about. Eldierle is the daftest personality you would find on social media. A man who cannot make a simple correct sentence in English is the person who was talking about the history of Benin regarding the Ugu kingdom. A man who left the village and started living in a metropolitan city. As a result, he misunderstood civilization. The Ugu kingdom existed 800 years ago, and it had since been conquered and united with the Benin kingdom. At present, the Onagie of Ugu had been suspended by the Oba of Benin because he supported Godwin Obasiki's attempt to balkanize the Benin kingdom. Eldierle has a deep-rooted hatred for the Benins. His wish is to see the Benin kingdom divided, and the power and influence of the Oba of Benin drastically reduced. listen to his unintelligent narrative of the Ogo Kingdom.
One of the well-respected king in Edo State, the Oba of Ugu Kingdom. The Oba of Ugu Kingdom. Ugu Kingdom is located in Edo South, Edo State. The king of Ugu people. Ugu Kingdom, they are on their own. The Oba of Benin is different from Oba of Ugu. Oba of Ugu does not bow for Oba of Benin. Oba of Benin too does not bow for Oba of Ugu Kingdom. History has made us to know that Oba of Ugu is on his own. He's a powerful king on his own. He has his own kingdom. He rules over his kingdom. He has his own chiefs. And by his power, he also put so many Enigi in so many communities. By himself. He's a well-respected king. I'm doing this video because of the question when so many people from outside the state, they ask me, Mr. Ediale, Edo State, how many king will I get for Edo State? Now it make me do this video now. Because so many of them, when they ask me this question, they don't really know. Some are asking me, in Esaland, how many king will I get? Then in Edo North, Afema, Auchi, how many king they there? Then Edo South, which is the Benin and Edo South facts, how many king they there? And the question when many people they ask me, maybe this one, now make me do this video today. They gonna know say, apart from the Oba of Benin, we still have Oba Nugo. I repeat, Oba Nugo is a respected king in that region. I am telling you today, because I know the history. I know the history. I know right from time that we have another Oba in Edo region. In that Edo South. So we have the Oba of Benin and the Oba Nugo. Thanks for watching this video. Or there's anything you don't understand, you can feel free to ask. Go to my comment section and ask. Not be by cause, not be quarrel, I beg. What you best not know, you go ask question. I repeat, Oba Nugo is a respected king in that region. Thanks for watching my video.
Yes, we agreed that the Ogo Kingdom actually existed for 400 years before it was reunited with the Benin Kingdom. Before we listen to Azomo Kakadu on his peripheral explanation of the emergence of the Ogo Kingdom. These were our research findings. The Kingdom of Benin broke up into two parts 800 years ago, not long after the inception of the ongoing dynasty of the Obas of Benin. The breakup occurred at the end of the reign of Oba Huakwahen, the second Oba of the dynasty. The two kingdoms which resulted from this breakup of the Old Kingdom, that is the Kingdom of the Ogisos, remained separate entities, independent of each other for the next 400 years. The kingdom which broke away from Benin City became known as the Ogo Kingdom, and it encompassed the Oranwan territories. The capital of this kingdom, and therefore a rival of Benin City, was the town of Humogo, nowadays called Humogo Huzuabor, situated a short distance from the present-day town of Hugo and Ingikorayanwan. The founder of this breakaway kingdom, and its first monarch, was Elegbi, a prince of Benin, and the great-grandson of Elweka I, the first Oba of Benin. Elegbi and his successors were the monarchs of the Ogo Kingdom for 400 years, until the reconquest of the kingdom by the Benin monarch. Before we continue, let's listen to Azomo Kakadu.
If this is your first time of coming across this page, or you have been here, I welcome you or welcome you back to my page. My name is Azomo Kakadu. The very first Oba whose sons ruled successively is Oba Eweka Nokao. And remember that Oba Eweka Nokao was the son of Oba Omononya, or Oromiyan if you like. And Oba Oromiyan in turn was the son of Ikaladera. And Ikaladera in turn was the son of our last Ogiso Owodo. So let me take it from the top, right? Our last Ogiso, we have 31 Ogiso when the kingdom was still Igodomigodo. So the 31st Ogiso was by the name Ogiso Owodo. The only son and heir to the throne, the only son of Ogiso Owodo, was exiled. So he took refuge at Uhe or Ife. Please, not Ile Ife. Uhe or Ife. When the elders, that is the Dionysian, today Uzamanion, when they approached him, he said he could not come back to the kingdom. So he sent his son, Omononya, to come back home and take the throne. So Omononya came back, spent some time here. History has it that he spent 5 years. So during this time, he birthed a son who was later crowned as Oba Eweka Nokao, or Oba Eweka the First. So it is the sons of Oba Eweka the First who are the first to have ruled the kingdom successively. Right. So the sons, Oba Eweka was the father to Uwahwan Ehemihe, Idu, not Paidu, please, not our Paidu. Idu, Enogumo. He was also father to Omonuza or Olumuza of Use. Also the father to Omodion of Uwoha, and many others, and some others rather. So the sons of Oba Eweka who became Oba who ruled Benin Kingdom successively are Uwahwan and Ehemiye. The question is, why? How come? So it happens that after the passing of Oba Eweka Nokao, his eldest son, Uwahwan, was crowned Oba. But unfortunately, Uwahwan did not have a son, so there was no heir to the throne. But the interesting part is, his eldest daughter, by the name of Emadeyo, had a son. That was the first male child in the family. And that son was by the name Elegbe. A lot of Edo people must have heard this name. It's a very popular name in our history, very strong one at that. So the boy's name was Elegbe. Elegbe and Uwahwan, his grandfather, were very close. They were very close. They had this very strong bond, this very strong relationship. In short, it is said that Oba Uwahwan would hardly let Elegbe leave his side. Now, because of this strong bond and relationship between Oba Uwahwan and his grandson Elegbe, Benin people or Edo people already assumed that at the passing of Oba Uwahwan, Elegbe was going to be crowned the next Oba, since Uwahwan did not have a son of his own. And not just the people, Elegbe himself had concluded that he was going to become the next Oba. But unfortunately, after the passing of Oba Uwahwan, Elegbe laid his claim to the throne, but it was contested. So his grand uncles, that is the brothers to Oba Uwahwan, rejected it and said that he was not fit for that throne. And their claim or their excuse, which of course according to our custom and tradition, they were right. Their excuse or their claim was that Elegbe was from the mother's lineage, from the mother's side. So Elegbe was connected to the throne or connected to Oba Uwahwan through a female, that is the mother, Emadeyo. If he were maybe the son of one of their nephews, that would have been a different case. So there was this contention for the throne. Of course, the Uzamani, then they were still five. They were known as a Dionysian. They had to step in, and after some consideration, just to make peace, so that nobody would say that they were biased, they had to come up with some sort of coronation test. This coronation test was announced by the then Eo Igewe. So Igewe came out and put out the challenge and asked the contestant to go and fetch them a very old and big bull that has a bird nest on his head, not just any bird, a weaver bird. Anawania hiania ya gwale emila na ha boko yon imure. Omanogi metimwe milana na ha boko yon re ahia imaoba. Now they all set out. Elegbe went back to his father's hometown, Umowu. But unfortunately, before he came back, his grand uncle, Ehemie, had provided what was demanded. He provided, surprisingly, a very old and big bull with a weaver bird on his head, and he was crowned Oba. When Elegbe came back, he was not happy. He was very vexed. So what he did was to go back to his father's hometown, Umowu, and in revenge, he divided the kingdom into two. Yes, in the 13th century, Benin Kingdom was divided into two. Well, the story of Elegbe is not one that can be narrated or said in passing, so we are going to reserve that for another day, a story for another day.
The story of Prince Elegbe began in the Usama Palace in Benin City. The first Oba of the Oba dynasty, Elweka I, was blessed with a number of sons. When he died, one of his sons, Prince Huakwahen, was crowned the second Oba of Benin, there at the Usama Palace, by the Huzama chiefs, in the performance of their ancient constitutional duty to the Benin monarchy since the times of the Ogiso kings. Oba Huakwahen had no male children of his own. He had only daughters. The eldest of these daughters was Princess Emadea, whose mother was a lady who hailed from Humogo village in the Inya-Korayanwan territories. Princess Emadea gave birth to a son who was called Elegbe. Young Elegbe grew up with his grandfather, the Oba, there at the Usama Palace. The Oba doted on his grandson, and it was generally assumed that the young man would succeed his grandfather, being the first direct male descendant of the king. When Oba Huakwahan died, Prince Elegbe pressed his claims to the throne of his grandfather, there being no uncles to take precedence over him. He had some grand-uncles, though, who were still living, brothers to his grandfather. But they were, of course, not the direct male descendants of the late king. Notable among these grand-uncles was Prince Ihenmihen, one of the younger sons of Oba Elweka I. The Ahadbi, the Oba's official relatives, presented with the claims of the two claimants, the deceased Oba Huakwahen's direct male descendant, on the one hand, and the Oba's relative from the preceding reign, on the other, agonized over which of the two candidates they should present to the Uzama chiefs to be crowned the next Oba of Benin. The Uzama agreed with the Ahadbi that the combined duty of their two bodies, whose relevance lay in the protection and sustenance of the monarchy, was an uncompromising dedication to the survival of Oromnian's maleness in the line of the Obas of Benin. Ihenmihen possessed Oromnian's maleness. We would nowadays refer to this as Oromnian's Y chromosome. Elegbe, it was true, was Oromnian's descendant, but his maleness was not Oromnian's. Elegbe's maleness had been locally acquired, here in Benin. So, with the agonizing over, and a decision of the preferment of Ihenmihen finally taken, the Ahadbi and the Uzama directed their attention to the problem of how to safely get Prince Elegbe and his loyalists out of town so that Ihenmihen could be crowned without any upheaval. In the final burial ceremonies of Oba Huakwahen, the oracle prescribed the sacrifice of a bull. The ox was to be an animal of rare endowments. It was to be so old and so big that it must have lost some of its domestication and regressed partially into the wild state. Weaver birds, mistaking the huge, gnarled horns of the beast for tree branches, and its massive forehead for a tree trunk, would, in consequence, have built their nests on the beast's head, and hatched their young ones there. The oracular prescription was given to Elegbe, and he set out from Benin, from the Usama Palace, with a large entourage, to the Oriamwan territories, to his grandmother's village of Humogo, to obtain the prescriptive item which would clear the way for his occupation of the throne of Benin. He crossed the Oriamwan River by canoe in the village of Inkpan, and journeyed to Humogo village, nestling in the basin of the Akinwan River as it courses south from Agbor town, where it is called the Origodo River. Great was the joy of Inya-Korayanwan when Prince Elegbe arrived in Humogo. And happily for Elegbe, and conveniently for the Usama conspirators, there was indeed in Humogo village an animal which perfectly fitted the prescription of the oracle. The animal's existence was so well known in the area that it had been given a name. It was called Amagizo by the people. The bull was already virtually wild, like the Ahan, the buffalo of the forests. It hardly bothered anymore to return at dusk to the village with the other cattle after their day of foraging in the outskirts of the village, preferring now to remain in the thickets. Nesting on its great forehead, from which sprang its huge, gnarled horns, were nests of weaver birds, in which their eggs were being incubated and hatched. The nests had been home to a few generations of weaver birds. The stalwarts of the village went into the thickets in the outskirts of the village and apprehended the Amagizo. The animal was led into the village in all its hoary magnificence, and got ready for its journey to Benin, complete with its garland of weaver birds' nests. After some days of recuperation in Humogo from his long trek from Benin City, Elegbe set out on his return journey to Benin, accompanied by a large concourse of people, with the Amagizo in tow. Meanwhile, other developments were taking place in the Usama Palace in Benin. When word came that Elegbe had crossed the Orienwan River, on his outward journey to Humogo, the Yahagbe began the funeral ceremonies of Oba Huakuahen, with his middle-aged younger half-brother, Prince Ihenmehen, as the chief mourner. The obsequies were condensed into days rather than weeks. For the last rite of the final burial ceremonies, an ox, nondescript in size, was obtained. Some weaver birds' nests, obtained from the nearest palm tree, were used to festoon the animal's head and horns. With the oracular prescription thus met, the final burial rite was carried out, and the Hukurhe, the ancestor worship rattlestaff, dedicated to the spirit of the dead king, was handed to Ihenmehen as the new priest of the deity thus created. The prince was thereupon as over to the Uzama nobles who, there at the Usama Palace, crowned Ihenmehen as the third Oba of Benin. Meanwhile, Prince Elegbe recrossed the Orienwan River and approached Benin City. But at one of Oka villages, on the approaches to Benin City, word got to him that Benin already had an Oba on the throne in Usama in the person of his great-uncle Ihenmehen. Let's listen to Azadawa as he gives us an explicit explanation.
Benin Kingdom. It is a very interesting topic, and I want you all to pay very keen attention to this very interesting topic that some people want to start using as propaganda. We're going to talk about it. We're going to take it. Auntie Golden Heart, take her to I beg. Leave that guy. I beg. I would not want us to discuss about that guy's matter on my platform. I beg. Lao. Pay attention to what is most important. Because tomorrow now, some of you now will constantly call me. They tell me, say, there was a kingdom, that Benin kingdom was divided into two. There was a kingdom, say now those ones say now then can't get Benin. Una better listen now. So I'm gonna learn the story and forget about that non-entity. Someone who is not important. You guys don't make this guy feel relevant. Everybody has to be thinking like a Zoduwa. See, I will address if he's lying against our history. I will address those lies. If he's saying anything wrong about our history that is confusing to you, you can bring it to this platform. We will address the lies. But, like I said, Izodua or any of Izodua's platform is too big. Alright? It's too big. It's too big to discuss about him. I can't. Yeah, then maybe a lot of you people, or should I screenshot a lot of our chats? How I was probably like a mini god to him. How he tapped from my knowledge. So is it not that kind of a guy who will now be discussing his matter? How do you I think that's what he said, that he's older than I am and all of that. But I beg, please, concentrate on this very topic. Is really, really very important. Voila. Exactly. Now, this is someone that is from Ugu Kingdom. Now, get it very clear. That's what we want to address. Vod balls, Ike. You are not from Ugu Kingdom. You are from Benin Kingdom. Ugu Kingdom no longer exists, and that's the essence of this story. That's the essence of this story. All right, that's the essence of this today's class. Now, listen to this very interesting story, very very exciting. After the interregnum of Benin, after the interregnum of Benin, the Oromiyan came. Oromiyan gave birth to Obaiweka, who eventually became Obaiweka the first, and Obaiweka the first gave birth to many children, many sons and many daughters. The first of his son was called, listen, Uwaihuan. I want you guys to pay attention to this very topic. It is very important. Don't get distracted. You guys pay attention to this topic. If it is not important, I want to make it even a topic on. Pay attention and let's concentrate on this topic. It's really very important. And don't distract us on this platform. Please. Until I'm done. Obaiweka gave birth to many sons and daughters. Obaiweka the first. Sons and daughters, a lot of them. His first son was Uwaihuan. By right, all right, by right, Uwaihuan is the first son. Automatically, he becomes the next Oba of Benin, which he eventually became. Now, Oba Uwaihuan gave birth to just a daughter, Omame Omokbia. I'm talking about Oba Uwaihuan is now the grandson of Oromiyan, the great-grandson of Ogiso Owodo, the son of Eweka. Oba Uwaihuan was the first son of Obaiweka the first, and he became an Oba. But he did not give birth to a male son. So instead, he gave birth to just a daughter. The name of that daughter was called Princess Imadeyo. Take note. The name of that daughter was called Princess Imadeyo. Princess Imadeyo now married a Benin, someone from Owedo, and they sired a son called Prince Elegbe. They sired a son called Prince Elegbe. Let me give the chronology again so that we can get it. Obaiweka had a son who became an Oba called Oba Uwaihuan. That Oba Uwaihuan had no sons of his own. Instead, he had a daughter, just a child, which was a daughter. The history remembers her to be Princess Imadeyo. The Princess Imadeyo now gave birth to a son called Prince Elegbe. Prince Elegbe now became a direct descendant of Oba Uwaihuan, but through the maternal blood. Now, Princess Imadeyo, the mother of Prince Elegbe, that is Prince Elegbe's grandmother, came from a community, a village called Umowo. Umowo now is now called Umowonzoagbo. Prince Elegbe's grandmother, that is Iye Prince Elegbe, came from a community called umogo evoni agitie umogo wazwagbo bedenena. That is a community iye no be ye Prince Elegbe Kiri. I'm trying to establish some of these very vital points. It will help us during the course of the history. Now, Prince Elegbe, however, is a direct descendant of Obawakwan, but through maternal line. So he wanted, by right, to be the next Oba of Benin. The Benin, the Ihogbe, who determines who will present historically from history, Norioba, that will present it to the Usama. The Usama role is to crown. Omani Ogbeyi presents in Uzama or Uzama crown. It has always been. It is Uzama do not participate in the selection process of the king. It is not their role because they don't know who is the first son of the Oba of Benin or who is the right heir to the throne. Their own is that once the Ogbe had presented it to them, they will crown. But now there was a problem. The problem is Prince Elegbe felt that he's a direct descendant of his grandfather. Automatically, he's supposed to be the next Oba of Benin. But the chiefs understood that Egbiye Oya Ovioba, through the maternal line, all right, Oya Egboba, not through patrilineal Egbira. Instead, they now looked for his grandfather, which is about Uwakwan's younger brother, which was called Prince Ehemie. That Prince Ehemie has a legitimate claim also to the throne. So there were now two candidates. Prince Elegbe, the grandson of Oba Uwakwan, then Prince Ehemie, the younger brother of Oba Uwakwan, who is a grand uncle to Prince Elegbe. These were the two aspiring possible candidates for the throne of the Ogisos. But it's a problem. What will the Edo people now do to curtail another problem that might create another interregnum? You know, they just came out from interregnum not even long ago. The Oromi and Duduwa interregnum of about 70 years. What do we do now to curtail this situation? Then I said, who will eventually be able to bury Oba Uwakwan by providing, in other words, they seek for the native doctor, Obo, to come and provide solution to the problem. Then when the native doctor came, he now said, one of the most important ritual material for the burial of Oba Uwakwan, whoever that can be able to provide it first, automatically will become the Oba of Benin. He gave them a prescription. Noga meba mo emila naka boko yohun. Noga meba mo emila na aha. It's aha, not boko yohun. Emila, it's emila in Benin. It's not cow. It's ox. So some of you who understand English, ox, O-X, abi O-X, ox. Then aha is the weaver bird. You understand? Like the ox, the emila was a domesticated animal in old. All right, but omeso nogi doye no dekbene. Then they are not like wild. They are wide. They are not like wild animals. So because of the hardly move, they now have their horns are now as thick and big as a stem of a tree, that the weaver bird, Nedotia aha, mistake the horn of this emila as a stem of a wood. Although Bokoyo will now build a nest. So emila na ha Bokoyo, translated in English, it means an os, that the weaver bird has built a nest on its horn. Whoever that can provide that ritual material, all right, whoever that can provide that ritual material will be crowned the Oba of Benin. That was a ritual material. Now, to the Benin people, those in Benin, it was a myth. They have never heard of whether that kind, they have never heard the Fred Agbekan, you relax. The person who told the story, who documented the story, is one of the brightest Oriomon scholar till date. Late Dr. Aishen is probably the first medical surgeon trained in University of London in the history of Orion. His grandfather, Idemudia, was the only survivor of the war. Nama, that was not, the British did not penalize or sentence to death Idemudia. Idemudiani, he's the founder of Oben. And Idemudia, that's my mentor's grandfather, his own father, Aishem, became the first BTC secretary. That he was the first secretary of the palace, and he was also an Onsa of Ole Arosa. So he came from a long line of historian. So he has documented it. So those Umogunokwa lies that you guys are talking about, it's what I want to correct. There's nothing like Umogunokwa at the time of this history. The original Umogun, it's Umogunehere, which is Umogunozwagbo. And that is what I want people to analyze. And I'll give you reasons. I'll give you statistics why Umogunokwa is now seen as greater than Umogunozwagbo. But like I have said, at this time, it was one of the sons of Elegbe that went to found Nagiti Umogunokwa. So that means Elegbe was already existing. Umogunehere was already existing. I will explain all of this. Just calm down. Exactly. Late Panashen wrote the most extensive, a full book was written on this matter. And before he died, I had interviewed him on this matter. So I have a first-class knowledge. I have a first-class knowledge on this matter. So, now, according to the Benin elders, it was a myth. Egba Ameni, Ero, Amion, it doesn't exist. According to the Benin, the people in present-day Benin city, it doesn't exist. But they didn't know that in Iyekoreon, that animal exists. Alright? And all of that. So, then when Prince Elegbe was told, and I said, okay, he carried a lot of his courtiers, a lot of his servants and all of that, and they embarked on a travel to his grandmother's village. Get on your say, you're not even pay attention. Iye no Biye came from a community called Omogo. Omogo Atiae. That was the original name. Ogis Seva, when he got to the village, passing through the Igbe, crossing the Evaroe, the Igbe River, crossing through the Evaroe, crossing Igbehwe. All right. Then Adana, the 5 junction at present-day Ugoni Ekoreomo, Adanako. There was a mighty tree, Nana Atiako. You know, it was a very mighty tree. They said it was still there till even in the 80s. It's a legendary tree that's in the 5 junction where you can branch to that. If you're going straight, whether you're going to Ronigbe, whether you're going to the side of Oben, or going to the side of Umogonzwagbo, you know, or if you're going straight to Ewesi and all of that. Omowo, that was the original name. When he got to the village of Omowo, that's where his own grandmother came from. Iye no Biye, the maternal grandmother. You understand? Ewakere, Ogisewa, he told those people and told them that Watokbe Yari Obabedo, but Avenido Moe Emilana Ahabokoyon. All right, and the elders of the village told them, I talk by my prince, Emilani Wakoyo Kore, and he saw a lot of all of these animals. All right, it was a myth to them in Benin City, but they never really knew that this thing existed. It abounds in the thick forest of Yekoreomo. It abounds. You understand? So, and they said they were willing to give him when he was ready to return back to Benin. All right. Then the Benins felt that they have cajoled him. All right. Felt that they have cajoled him. So eventually he was given, when after some few days, about setting out back to Benin, then they had to, they saw a perfect description. Emilana Ahabokoyon, and they actually get it prepared for the journey back to Benin. So it was coming to Benin. So the Benin now heard that a Prince Elegbe Ogele Mie Aemenine. So instead, Emila, they just that Adanako that is I think I saw some, it's inside that Adanako. That is where Ugo came from. Ewake Bugo. I'm going to give you all of this story. Adani Sewano. Everybody that is going must stop there. That is the heart of Ugo. All right. Okay, we'll go in there. So, like I was saying, Anagele me. So Edona do one instead in their own and Boedoku charades, they just look for one Emila. Emila Yanawagwale nest Yanawa moyo ugon a bigon the horn. Then Then they just quickly ask Prince Ehemian to perform the rites, the burial rite of Obawai, its elder brother. All right, they just quickly performed it and they quickly crowned him the Oba of Benin. So then Prince Elegbe has already gotten to a place now called Oka. He has gotten to a place now called Oka when the news got to him that Amobabe Nevedo, that his grand uncle has just been crowned as the Oba of Benin. He felt pained. He felt betrayed. He felt pained. He felt betrayed. I don't know how to explain how he felt at that moment, because to him, the line of his grandfather has just been cut off. And Obawai lines will never going to experience what it takes to be the Oba of Benin ever again. He felt betrayed. At that point in time, where the news met with him, he ruled a line and planted an ihimi tree there. He created an enogie. The enogie is still there to date. And called that place Oka. That place has always been called, but that Oka, he called it Oka Nomogun. Not Nomayo. It's Oka. It's close to the market. Oka Nomogun, where the war begins. That's what it means. Nomogun, where the war begins. He wrote a line and said that Kemarie Ekiniemu Keda. Oh, okay, I think he now turned. He now backed Benin. He now faced Orion. Like Kema Bari Kiniemu Dada. Niemauda Nyoginya. He declared a kingdom of his own immediately. He declared a kingdom of his own immediately. He therefore now created a sort of a vassalage, a nedutie ago enibode, a centering camp, using the enogie that he created at Oka like a centering camp to be able to give him feedback should in case Edomo Kobu in a day. So he created a centering camp. Benins are always known historically to always create centering camps Just like when we created the century cap at a place now called Agenebode. From the Benin word, Ago Enibode. That's a century cap. People who wash. They tell Ima de now. When I ask Ima you there, no get they tell Ima Mukode all the time doing Mukode. A century cap from Ago Enibode. That century cap was created during the time of Benin Ida War. It was created during the time of the Benin Ida War. That's the century cap. All right. Exactly. So he created that at Okanumungoen. He created an enoge. That's why they still have an enoge. That enoge that he created was created by Prince Elegbe. The enoge is still there. Was created by Elegbe. All right. So he created it, and he moved. He moved and went to his maternal grandmother's village, Omowo, where he had gotten that Emilanaka Bokoyon in the first place, and still there. There became the capital. I want people to listen, because this is where I'm having issues with some people who are not trying to take the glory of another and give it to another. It's although I've never said that Ugu Kingdom never once existed. Never once existed. It no longer exists. Never once existed. It existed. But the capital of Ugu Kingdom was at Umogo, which is now called Umogo Zwagbo. All right? Once existed, and it was there. That was the capital. For hundreds of years, for about 400 years, Ugu Kingdom had existed independent from Benin. And it is the descendants of Elegbe that was the ruler, every first son. So Elegbe had about 11 children. Elegbe had 11 children. The first of his line became the Enogie. The first is when Elegbe died, his first son became the next Obanugu. All right. His second son was called Olodagweze. He crowned himself. He didn't leave. Elegbe never left Umo Wagbo. I don't know what your question. You understand? So Elegbe never left there. There was a capital. The one you guys now call Umo Wagbo was a capital for 400 years until Obaihengboda, who eventually conquered the Ugu Kingdom, brought war to Ugu Kingdom. And his camp, where Ekenobe Campi was called Urewe. Urewe till the 80s, because Obaihengboda built camp there, created Iya, because he stayed there for quite a very long time. There are some things that were replicated. There are Ikun, there are Iya, a Hengbuda market that was created because he spent some time. Urewe was where he planned, he orchestrated the master plan of defeating the Obanugu at that time, which was called Igeon. Igeon was the last Obanugu, was the last king of Ugu Kingdom. Igeon was his name, and it reigned during the time of Obaihengboda. Now, like I was saying, Elegbe had 11 children. His first son eventually took the mantle of leadership from him. His second son was called Olodagweze. Olodagweze left Umowo, the capital, to establish an alternative Umowu, which is now regarded as Umowu Nokwa. So that means every Enogi of Umowu Nokwa ancestrally is a younger brother to every Enogi of Umowu Nwagbo. That's what it means. That is the first thing I want to establish for people to know. All right, that is the first thing I want to make people know. All right. Igeon was the last Obanugu. He was defeated. When he was defeated, he ran to a place in present-day Ekpoma, and after some time he came back. Obaihengboda gave him a pardon. All right, and now made him subservient, because at the time the war came, the war was so mighty on the Umowonzuagbo. It was so mighty that a lot of their wives, almost all their wives, ran to the other Umowun, which is the Umowunokwa. And because of the population that left the original Umowun went to populate the another Umowun, it now swelled. When the war ended, Igbama, Nokpa, Nikale, Yoha, and all of that, they also went to join their mothers and their wives at what you now refer to as Umowu Nokwa today. So, Umowu Nehere or Umowonzuagbo reduced in size. The population that it had already repopulated the other Umowu that is now regarded as Umowu Nokwa today. Alright? When Igion was roundly defeated, it is even in the records of Umowonzuagbo, or many Atohanie, that Owa Amokbera, that there was a mighty tree. It is written, it is detailed, it's recorded apocryphally. I know for some of you who have been following our stories, I've always told you that most of the stories in Benin is apocryphal. The real story was that Umowonzuagbo and destroyed and completely vanquished them until they had to, it was Umowunokwa that was the first community to submit to the power. I'm going to give you the updates now. It's because Umowunokwa was the first community amongst all in Ugu Kingdom that submitted to the power of Ehengbuda. That is why Ehengbuda empowered Umowunokwa. But I'm coming there. Now, I always say that Bini Oharedo or my Temi Yagwe Eriedo Yatoha. The apocryphal story tale of the original story of Ehengbuda when Ehengbuda Yamoko Yagwe was that Owa Okberan. A lot of you have heard the story. Owa Okberan Okwa no care or where Ogioria Ogie Umowonzuagbo. There was a big mighty tree that was very close to the palace. Now, this tree was about to fall on the palace building. In order for the youth, the women, wanted to hold, they wanted to hold the tree. You know, when my uncle used to tell me that story, I used to say, so, Iran, when Iran, I mean, the very Iran, Igedu, or one mokpa, Ekwemeba mokpa was about to fall on Enoge's house. Then the people didn't want the tree to destroy their Enoge's house. Instead, they all assembled to hold the tree while the tree is falling, so that it doesn't destroy the Enoge's house. Instead, the tree fell, crushed all of them, and destroyed the Enoge's house. It is an apocryphal way of saying the tree. The tree represents Obaengbuda and his military might. How he crushed Umowonzuagbo. That is how we tell. That is how we tell the story. And there's also a story that that is also very common to even the Umowunokwa. The one I just said is the one of Umowonzuagbo. The one that's common is the pot of good luck. That originally a pot of good luck was given to one of the sons of Elegbe, and it was carried and buried at the center. Was buried at the center of Umowunokwa. That is why good luck started coming. A lot of good things, a lot of people in other communities started coming. It tells of the story that yes, Umowunokwa wasn't as great as it was initially. It was the people who ran from Umowonzuagbo. That is why the word Ozuagbo came from the word Umowunozwogbe. Nozwogbe. Yeah. Why did the people call them Nozwogbe? Because everybody was aware of the military might of Obaengbuda. everybody was aware of the military might of Oba Engboda, that Oba Engboda's military might can crush the uncrushable. Instead, it was stupidity and foolishness that made the Umogun, the original Umogun, I've said that the original Umogun is not Nohwa, that made the original Umogun people to want to engage in a warfare with with Oba Engboda as in military might. So Edonawe Umogun was that it was foolishness that when one a bad boy, it's just like me, I go just see the world's strongest man now. As I say, as me as me now rubber like this, I just say this guy get chest. You understand? I say I want to follow the guy all ground. And I know say this guy will fit beat me, but I want to follow the guy all ground. So I don't have a that it was foolishness. If they weren't foolish, they were supposed to have ordinarily submitted to the power and might of Oba Engboda's military. Otherwise, the destruction that was meted out on them, they couldn't have been destroyed as much as they were destroyed. I don't know in order to compress it, that Umogonzwagbo is the home and was the headquarter of Ugu Kingdom, not Umogunohwa. Not Umogunohwa. All right? But because when the war came, the Umogun that is now called Nohwa Noro, that has the epithets of Nohwa, the bigger Umogun, submitted first. And because of that, Oba Engboda found them as a reliable someone you can rely on the people you can rely on. In other words, he now gave the Duke, which is the Enogie of Umogun Nohwa, he now gave them. There was never any time that there was an Oba Nugu in Umogun Nohwa. The Oba, not the Oba Nugu, was at Umogonzwagbo. Never at any time in history that it was at Umogun Nohwa. I've just told you, Umogun Nohwa is stealing the glory of Umogun Nehere. And that is the plain truth. Although, because they submitted on time, even before the war, they were given the privilege of becoming the head amongst all the Elegbe established dukes and dukedoms. So the Oba of Benin gave the Umogun Nohwa first amongst equal. And that is why he now created the epithet of Oba Nugu. He's not saying that, he's saying that he's the first, he's the head of all. What Oba Nugu means is not Oba as a king in reality. Oba Nugu means that he's the first amongst all of the Ugu dukes, because he was given the political and the traditional wit amongst every other person. But there is a practice that is still being practiced till date to verify that Umogonzwagbo was the original headquarter, was the original, the only headquarter of Ugu Kingdom. Adi Kwegbe of all the Ugu dukedoms till date. Ask. All right? It's not a matter of Wesley Egwaihato. It's not a matter of who knows it better. It's not a matter of who knows it better. I don't know why Benins always think that I know this thing better, I know this thing better. It's not a matter of who knows this thing better. There's already a written works about this matter. And someone who knows it far better than you do already wrote it. So, Adwi Kwegbe amongst the Enogie of that are Elegbe descendant. I say here Obemila, the Hindlip, he's still accorded the right to the best part of the meat. Is still given to the Enogie of Umogonzwagbo till date, as a sign of a respect that is the home at which every other descendant of Elegbe migrated from. like I've said, it's just like you have Okaiji-san, which is domiciled at Irwa. Is the head of all Enigis in Enigi of Okaoro Ogie Awogie-san. Is the head. That is the Enogi of Irwa. Is the head of all the Enigi in Esan land. Is the first amongst equal. It doesn't mean that other people are not Enogi. They have the same right, but he's just first amongst equal. In case they want to take decisions, all right. The decisions will be presided by him. Is your Kao Jason. It's first amongst equal. So that's how Umogunogwa Jukdom or Enogi became first amongst equal amongst all Elegbe descendants. That is the Ugu Jukes. All right. But however, another point that we must understand is that the meeting that was being conducted amongst all of the Ugu kingdoms were never done at Umogunokwa. Because when Ehembuda brought war to Ugu kingdom, he was domiciled at Urewe. And when he had completely vanquished them, all matters of within the former Ugu kingdom territories were decided at Urewe. Even before now, almost all the meetings that concerns the Ugu kingdom, if it's to be decided among them, must be done at Urewe and not Umogunokwa. That is another point that we must notice. In our next class, I'm going to talk about all the 11 children of Elegbe, how they established a lot of other communities around. Some went to, one of his grandson, Ekmenede, went to Urunigbe. He died. His elder brother had to go and exhume his body, came to bury him in the front of the palace of the Enogi of Ewesi. He had a powerful spear, and that is what culminates to Ishioku, the Ishioku festival that has been done in Ewesi in 3 years. It's a reminiscence of the heroism, of the bravery of Ekpenede, who was a grandson of I'm going to, in our other subsequent class, I'm going to Yar Unikai, all the 11 children, the male and the female, the colonies, how all of them left. Like I've already established, it is his Elegbe's second son, or boy, Umogu Nokwa, Nagiti Umogu Nokwa, Nagiti Oladagweze, Imagua pronounce, Dona Logo, Kiri, Imagua pronounce, you understand? See, I'm not interested in Umogu Nokwa. Get it? In the topic stated on top here, it was not Umogu Nokwa that is the topic. It's Ugu Kingdom. And get to know, I'm from Orion too. All right? I'm from Orion too. So nobody has if you have a contrary opinion as to the story that I have said, you write your own book. Let the Umogu Nokwa people, those who are completely deceiving people historically, let them publish their own book. Let them have a book. At least my community, I wrote a book about my village. So the Umogu Nokwa people should also write, and so that we can compare notes. A lot of people have written about Ugu Kingdom, and also citing that some of the glory that Umogu Nokwa now possesses wrongly doesn't belong to them. And I'm a Benin historian. I'm not an Umogu Nokwa historian, or only Ugu Kingdom historian. So it's of concern to us that our history has to be well placed the way it should be placed. And if you have contrary opinion, according to Chinua Achebe, he said the best way to counter whether a lie or truth is to write, then you write. I've seen two Umo historians coming to me that they wanted to publish a book. That this is how it is, this is how they do, stating that Idu was the son and all of that. And I've been able to tell them you cannot reconcile the differences because they are wrong. But anyway, let me not argue. I'm used to you people not wanting to get the truth because of lies upon lies and upon lies. And that's what it's otherwise all about. I've been flogging Yoruba people, Ishekiri people and all of that for their lies. So let me also carry my cane to flog my own people for lying, for trying to bend story, for trying to So the bottom line of the history today is that Ugu Kingdom no longer exists. It doesn't exist. It once existed. Ehengbuda vanquished it. It no longer exists. And Obanugu is just an epithet, first amongst equal. It doesn't make him an Oba. Like I've said before, it is not only him. I don't know why some people, because of arrogancy of history, Oba is also an Oba. It doesn't make him an Oba. It doesn't mean that because he has an epithet. Yes, because he was once an Oba. It was once an Oba. I did a documentary of almost about 47 minutes of Obani Yedo. It has the appellation of an Oba. Even we have one called Obani Yekiya. If you people don't know that, that's also an appellation of Chief Oswan. Obani Yekiya. It's also an appellation. It doesn't not make him that Nyogi Yedo. You know. So most of these things were appellation as a result of the history of the world that is not longer in conformity with the reality of today's history. You know. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we started our class early today for some reasons. The reason is because I know it's on our live football match. Understand? So 8:00 now our football match. So maybe with live video. Maybe danfwa. Ball. So I don't know. So ladies and gentlemen, it's not about I don't feel that there's anything for anybody to be angry about. So a lot of our histories have been well documented. A lot of our historians have done have done so much work on this history. I will forever remain grateful to my mentor, late Dr. Aishene Hagosa. That one useless boy, not Baolia or whatever, of Umo Unokwa, said who the hell is Dr. Aishene Hagosa. Let me tell, if the guy is here, probably some of you that is friends, he said is the Olia of Umo Unokwa. For the purpose of his stupidity, let me introduce who Dr. Aishene Hagosa is to him again, so that he will know. Dr. Aishene has written over 25 books. The only Benin historian that have written more books than Dr. Aishene Hagosa is Jacob Wade Ararewa, that had 33 books to his honor. This is a man who was trained as a medical surgeon. At one point in time, he became the head of all medical doctors in former Edo Delta. Late Dr. Aishene Hagosa. His grandfather, Idemudia, was the only survivor he was the head of the Benin military at the Ologbo front. He was the only one that was not killed, executed by the British kangaroo court. Then his own father, Aisien, is the founder of Oben Village. And he was the first secretary, Nagiti Ayawe BTC secretary. He was the first secretary to Obai. He was the first secretary in the history of Benin. Secretary to Obai Weka II. And he was also an Onhonsa of Ole Arosa. So, someone who has this illustrious antecedent, when Omaye primary one, when I gwag many where you talk, not take only have whatever. When you that don't have that, I mean, really primary one result well at you don't know your left from right. Now claim because you come from Momo Unohwa. Now claim that Dr. Aishen Ehagosa was a liar. What would he have lied about? What could he have lied about? He's not the palace historian. He doesn't. Dr. Aishen has written books I have read that the works were completely against the palace history. And when I go and meet in the because that's the truth. As a scientist, do you know why most times I believe Dr. Aishen's work over most works? Why I choose him to be my mentor? Because he's a scientist. Scientists don't write until they are proofs. He was the first Benin historian, all right, that came from a scientific field. A scientist does not just write. They will have to inquire the real truth of a matter. They will have to make their proper findings and investigation. Draw an hypothesis before they can draw their theory. They don't just write. They don't write by they must want to draw findings. And that is why when a scientist goes deep into history, they are unique in their form of their writing system. Why I love them because I also came from a very strong science background. So I could be able to relate with almost everything that he wrote. I could be able to relate when he was able to divulge some mysteries, nedote taleo, and be able to say, oh, but this is what it represents, this is what it meant. So, Dr. Aishen never wrote any of his works by sentiment. Never wrote any of his work by sentiment. So then, one illiterate, name back Benin you talk. He's not saying that Dr. Aishen, late Dr. Aishen, that who the hell is he? No, F.A. Bella, you've not been following me. Maybe this is the first time you're following me. And if you know me by nature, I don't insult people. I don't. But when a small rat, let me get it very clearly. There are people I respect so much, and there are very few people. One of the person that I respect so much, I'm not insulting them, I'm just talking to one person that I respect so much because of what he has done for Benin Kingdom, is Dr. Aishen Ehagosa. Then one small rat was insulting him. Anyway. So, if you were in a place where your father was being insulted, and you know, if your father was being insulted, and you know that someone who is insulting you can omasi where the Dr. Aishen, maybe you should go and read when the Institute for Benin Studies when we were writing the life and times of Dr. Aishen, about 8 European historians participated in the documentary of the life and times of Dr. Aishen. All right. And how he was installed as a modern day Jacob Wide Arawa. They are not even disputing Messiah Kwase. They can't even dispute because they haven't even read it. Like I said, some of my brothers, that some of my very good brothers, that when we had that very terrible argument that day, they now said that they were going to fight. You know what I told them? I said, in order for you to get the truth, go to Umo Wons Wagbo. Go and inquire.